Any advice for those of us who want to be better critical readers of our Bible?
Well, a couple things. I think the biggest discovery that scholars have made since the Enlightenment about the Bible, with the Enlightenment there came changes in every field of study, of course, including biblical studies. And the biggest discovery was actually not discovery of manuscripts or archaeological discoveries. The biggest discovery of scholars over the last 200-300 years has been that the Bible is not a single book. We think of it as a book written by an author. You buy it, it's between two covers. And it's like you got different chapters, but it's like it's a book. And what scholars have realized, it's not a book. There are 66 books in the Protestant New Testament, and many different authors living at many different times, in many different contexts, different circumstances, different historical situations. And if you want to read what an author says, you really need to put that author in his or her own context. Because if somebody's writing in the 12th century, they mean something different by using the same terms we might use today in the 21st century. And so, let alone 2,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago. So you really have to know their context. So you have to treat each book separately and not pretend. For example, when you're reading the Gospels, you should not pretend that Mark is saying the same thing as John is. Yeah, they're both gospels, but these are two different authors living in different times and places, and they've got different points of view. And if you don't just let Mark be Mark, if you read Mark and say, "Oh, he means this," something that John is saying, then you're interpreting Mark by somebody else he didn't even know. And like, if you don't, you don't want to do that. I mean, if you write a book, you don't want somebody to read your book and say, "Oh, she must mean what this other person meant."
Right.
No, that's not necessarily the case. You got to read what this person said. So that's the biggest thing, I think, is to recognize these are all different books by different authors, and you need to read them not pretending they're all saying the same thing. And the other thing, as I said, I think it really helps to guide you in that, to listen to what professional scholars have said, who've devoted their lives to this kind of thing. I've got many friends who've spent 50 years of their lives
Hmm.
who learned Greek and Hebrew and Latin and Aramaic and Coptic, and they know all these ancient languages, and they study. It's what they do for a living. And so it's not they're always right. Sometimes they're wrong, but at least there are people who are experts. And it's helpful to listen to what experts have to say, whether you want to believe them or not.
For those of us with limited time and limited budgets, because some of these resources are very expensive to get great commentaries, academic commentaries, do you have
Yeah,
recommendations on like kind of a way to go that's not super expensive to help us
yeah,
like critically read and get accurate commentaries?
yeah. I think the best thing to do is to start by getting a really good annotated Bible. Um, and there's two that I would recommend. There are all sorts of study Bibles out there. Most of them I do not recommend because most of them they're fine for what they are, But if you want to know historical information by experts, then you need a really good, solid study Bible. And the two that I like the best are the Harper Collins Study Bible, which has, before each book, it has a little introduction to what the book's about, and explains when it was written and by whom and what its main themes are. And then it has little comments at the bottom of each page explaining difficult verses. So that's the Harper Collins Study Bible. And the other is the Oxford Annotated Bible. The new Oxford Annotated Bible. These are both done by serious scholars who have devoted their lives to this kind of thing, and they just provide such helpful information and charts and maps and things. It's the best way to start, I think.
When you're looking at other commentaries, are there any like red flags like, okay, that's probably not a commentary I probably want to get into from an academic standpoint?
Well, I would say most commentaries are like that for
Okay.
scholars. I think the thing that one has to do is pay attention to who's writing it. Um, and so the, the the two commentary series that scholars tend to use the most would be the Anchor Bible series and the Hermeneia series. But some lay people might find those a little bit difficult. And so I think what you want is one that is not just talking about the religious relevance of the material. That, for most people, of course, is very important. But if you want to understand these doctrines, really understand them, you need to approach them from a historical and a literary perspective. And for that, you need scholars who are trained in history and literature. And so there's not a particular series per se that I would recommend. There are several one-volume Bible commentaries, though, that are helpful, including a HarperCollins Bible commentary or a Jerome Bible commentary. There are some one-volume commentaries that can be very helpful.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video clip from the Delgado Podcast. To get more videos just like this, simply subscribe here on YouTube. Take care.